allows us to talk about and advise people. And we're seeing a mix of people coming into the market who are relocating and also people that are local. And what's interesting is if you think about the questions, I told you we're going to get back to Steiner Ranch and get to talk about Circle C. We got somebody here who's trying to decide, and if you look at the question on the screen, they're moving in from out of state, and they've had friends and other people point them towards Steiner Ranch or Circle C. And what happens is some of this can get overwhelming. So you're going to need some good advice on what the trade-offs are. Because I got to tell you, if you were thinking about moving into Steiner Ranch or Circle C, they're both awesome choices, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk about some of the trade-offs. I'll give you my thoughts on it, and you then can give me what your thoughts are. If somebody was asking me about what's the big difference between Circle C and Steiner Ranch, one of the things I would tell somebody to think about is where are they going to work? Well, let's talk about that first. So Steiner Ranch is out on Ranch Road 620 out near Lake Travis. It fronts into Lake Austin. You're going to have a significantly longer commute into downtown or into the MOPAC corridor than you will if you live in Circle C. So commuting time or drive time, if you're living out there, is going to be a trade-off. Now, for some people, I'll go with the lifestyle aspect of it. The trade-off, they say, I'm willing to drive further because we are an outdoor lake lifestyle family. We want to be close to the lake. You're going to need to drive significantly further from Circle C to get to water, like at Lake Travis, than you will at Steiner Ranch. It's right across the highway from Lake Travis, isn't it?
Yeah. Steiner Ranch is going to be, you're looking at water, you're driving by water, you see the golf course that looks over the water.
Right.
It's
a
community.
Those would be the two big things that I would compare and contrast for somebody. It's drive time and it's lifestyle. Both are awesome choices. Both have great infrastructure. Both are significantly expanding, meaning that they're large, improved master plan communities that have tons of amenities. I mean, they're putting in a brand new shopping center that just opened at Steiner Ranch. They just put all this new shopping and other infrastructure in at Circle C Ranch. I mean, so either one is a great choice. You just have to think about your drive time and your lifestyle and what are you going to do day to day in Austin. Because we are really an active outdoor community, and I know people that live there. I know you can't miss the number of families that are out on the lake that live in Steiner. I mean, you see them all the time. And I don't know as many people that are big boaters that live in Circle C. I'm sure there's some, but that's a big trade-off, isn't it?
That's big. You hit the nail right on the head with that community, because Circle C has a great golf course too. But if you want to play on the water, Steiner Ranch is probably a shorter distance to get your boat into the water.
Absolutely. So let's talk about we touched on this topic earlier. One of our favorite topics because of this hot real estate market. There is a real challenge for buyers, and we've got a buyer here, Charles, who lives in Austin, who's lost out on 3 houses with multiple offers. He's frustrated. What can he do to ensure the best chance of buying? I want to give my perspective, and I know you've gone through this, so you've got some of your advice you've offered. And I think it's of expectation setting. One of the biggest problems I see with buyers is they don't select the right agent and they don't give loyalty to one agent. In other words, you've got to have a strong advocate. You've got to have an advocate that has enough knowledge that can advise you on what you need to offer. Because some properties in price ranges are selling for at list or over list the first couple days they're on the market. So imagine if Charles is working with an agent that's fairly inexperienced, or he's working with 3 agents, and he's got different agents trying to figure out who can help him best. He's going to probably continue to miss properties, isn't he?
I believe he will.
What other advice would you offer, Charles Perry?
So, losing houses, I've done that personally and multiple times. The key that I suggest to all the buyers is making sure you have a system that gives you the best possible chance to get the property. System 1, make sure that you have an agent that knows the area that you're in. If I was coming down to Circle C, I would immediately refer them to you, Kevin. You know everybody there. You probably know the top 10 people that sold in that neighborhood. I would be willing to call those people individually and saying, hey, what do you know that's coming up? You may even have agents who rented a lot in that neighborhood and who know properties that are coming up from rentals to become or go on the market for sale. These are ways to get little edges over your competition. Another thing that I've done as an agent personally is I've actually driven neighborhoods that I know, just to see the coming soon signs for sale by owners. I've done a number of those little things to get people, just to get a little edge over the competition. So step one, know the neighborhood. Step two, when you're in the neighborhood, go out and actually do something that gives you an edge over someone else. Step three, make sure that your offer is a good offer up front, the best offers. It's okay to put your best foot forward and be firm with that versus trying to lowball to get it and you miss out on the deal, because you may have gotten the deal had you have been a little bit more reasonable in your offer. An option number 5 is if you can afford to get cash, you have cash resources, offer a cash deal with a 30-day close, and that gives you an ability to go refinance or finance at the end of those 30 days, because in some cases, people won't even consider. I did one in Travis Heights recently that went 20% over the asking price, and they only considered the cash offers in there. Those are really serious moments sometimes. I mean, some deals are so good that you'll have 25 offers on there, like this one on Haskell.
Right. It's a serious challenge for buyers if you're buying in a hot area. And I know that for many, many years, Austin was a market where it was more loose and free-flowing on the buy side. In other words, you had these big listing machines. I used to work with one of them over at Keller Williams. I mean, we would list and sell 500 transactions a year.
Right.
300 of those would be listings. So we did a tremendous amount of listing volume, and then we get additional buyers off our listings. But we would have on the buy side, the buyer agents on the team would have people that would be like trying to work with 3 agents. In this market, you cannot, I just tie this down for Charles, you cannot be working with multiple agents and hope that you're going to get any kind of loyalty from the agent, because agents get frustrated too on putting offers in. If they don't know that they're going to get to the finish line with you, you're not going to get there. I mean, if you think you're going to be able to work with multiple agents without signing up and committing to an agent, I just think that you're remiss in thinking that you're going to get to buy the right house. Now, if you're buying way out in an area that's got lots of distressed property, and there's a few of those in the far reaches of the Austin metro area, but for the vast majority, for most listeners, you're not going to be able to do this. So the first thing you need to do is find the right agent and actually commit to them. You're going to sign a buyer listing agreement or a buyer agency agreement so that they represent you, and you can then set some expectations on how you're going to purchase a home and what you expect from them. They should be previewing houses for you the day they come on the market. If you don't have time to see it until later in the afternoon, I can tell you with my buyers, I set an expectation that if it is a hot listing, I will probably leave immediately when it comes on the market in the morning, if it comes on in the morning. And I may pull you out of work. You just have to let your boss know that if this is the listing, you're either going to have to write it without having seen it, or you're going to have to leave work, because there is no, we can just go see it later on some of these listings like you just talked about. You miss them by minutes.
Right. I've lost a couple to that. You know, you mentioned something really interesting with the buyer's representation agreement. Most people don't realize that when you sign a buyer's representation agreement with an agent, that brings another level of responsibility to the agent, to that buyer. In fact, by law, they're obligated to tell them before anyone else of new opportunities that come out. So if they run into something that's not on the market yet, an agent with a representation agreement is obligated by law to inform that person that there's a new opportunity out there first. It's a really big deal, and I encourage people to use that weapon very effectively.
Well, and it's a serious challenge, because in any given market, this isn't an Austin issue. You've got people running around willing to work without having an agency agreement signed, and they're not explaining to the buyers. My opinion is, if I talk to Charles and I explain to him why he's losing homes and how he can avoid it by simply picking the right agent and signing a buyer agency agreement with them, just like you wouldn't expect an attorney to represent you in court or anybody else you hired as a professional, you shouldn't be expecting the same thing on the real estate side. And it's not a takeaway. It's a net add that you're going to get the representation that's going to help you buy the house. And like you said, most buyers don't understand it.
Wow. Well, I wish you luck, Charles.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the last question because it relates to it, right? Here's somebody talking about moving up to a larger home. What are some of the things to consider when picking an agent? We've touched on a lot of these, but just to kind of tie it down, you should, and I know that you and I think Perry will probably end up recording a separate how to pick the right agent Q&A because I think it's important. People don't know how to pick the right agent. You know, they have a friend whose cousin is a dog walker who has a real estate license, and they think that's a great person to pick. With how hot our market is, they've got different considerations about listing and buying, and if you're doing both, how can you get the right agent? How do you interview agents? What kind of questions should you ask? But here's the deal. You should make sure that you're not just taking it at face value that every agent is the same. Let's take the listing side. You're paying the same freight in terms of the fee, but you may be getting very different service. In other words, if you get somebody who's sold thousands of homes on the listing side for the same fee that you would get for somebody who has sold one or none, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in a lot of cases to hire one versus the other, go for the no experience versus experience. Yet people do it all the time, don't they?
They do.
And what I think is a big missed opportunity is hiring the right agent, and she's talking about moving up to a larger home, so she has the complexity of she needs to find somebody who has the experience of working with the listing side, and yet they're willing to help her on the buy side. And then, so she's got some additional questions she needs to talk to them about is, you know, tell me about your move-up program. How does it work? Have you helped a lot of sellers also buy homes? You know, because if she got with just primarily a listing agent, she may be very disappointed on the buy side. She needs somebody that can explain to her, how's this entire transaction going to work? And I just had this conversation with a seller over in Cedar Park that has fired their previous agent. You know, they understand that, you know, at TMM Group, we've sold a lot of houses over there, so I went over and met with them. We spent more time talking about their frustrations with how it was going to work on buying because it didn't work. They got into contract, they fell out of contract, they didn't get back in contract, but even their frustration on that agent, they knew it was the wrong one to help them buy because it was like they didn't feel comfortable asking questions, the guy wouldn't help them. So things to consider, you need to have a set of questions about experience, talk to them about the process, talk to them about your concerns. Here's what I want, and make sure that they've got a good answer for it. Because I know when I do my consultations, this is what I spend most of my time on. I'm not talking about let's go out and look at houses, or let's put a sign in the yard and sell your house. It's let's talk about how this is going to work, the same way you would if you were hiring a lawyer or a business consultant. They spend more time asking you a question, and a good agent, I'll tie it down with this, and I'll get your final feedback as we wrap up today. A good agent will spend a lot of time asking you questions about what you're trying to accomplish, not just telling you why you should work with them. Because you're not always going to be a great fit for people, are you?
I don't think so. I think that people connect with certain people better than others.
Absolutely, and I see that a lot. So, Perry, any other thoughts on that as we wrap up? I've got the information on how to submit questions if you're a listener.
Now, selecting an agent is a really tough and personal thing to do. The questions that I tend to recommend to people are, make sure that you connect with those people. Make sure that you connect with them in a way, especially when it comes to communication. Many times I hear the biggest complaints that I hear between unhappy customers and agents is always about how they communicate. Are they the type of people that require a lot of hand-holding? You want to make sure that you get a hand-holding type agent that knows how to hold your hand when you work through it. And that comes with the rapport building that you described in detail a few minutes ago. I also encourage people, don't be afraid to ask an agent how much they've made year to date. I can remember Ken Galliard, my first sales manager, who used to say, carry your W-2 with you at all times and pull it out whenever they want, because that'll tell you or give you some idea of success metrics that are beyond just the presentation that you've got right in your hand.
And that's a good idea. And I think part of the issue when you're talking with people is what are the challenges around the experience levels. People think all agents are interchangeable, and they're not, are they?
No, they're not.
And asking somebody just frankly the tough questions of, tell me about how many houses you've been involved with. Let's take the listing side. How many listings have you handled in the last 12 months? How many transactions have you sold in your career? And then the same thing on the buy side. How many buyers have you worked with in the last 6 months? And let's talk about your last 3 multiple offer situations and how did you fare?
Mm-hmm. What happened on the last low ball, when you got the low ball offer, what did you say to the people? I mean, you need to dig a little deeper. Once you got the communication thing down, dig
right.
deeper.
Absolutely.
Communication number 1.
Absolutely. Well, Perry, we're ready to wrap up here. We had another good session for episode 4. On the screen is the email address if you're a listener and you'd like to submit us some additional questions, whether you're relocating in or you're a local seller or buyer. And you can certainly ask us to call you as well if you send it to info@Austin, Texas Real Estate. And if you're looking for Perry to get information about downtown or the condo market or anything else, I will forward that on to him, and we both see these things when they come in. And Perry, I want to thank you for your time again, and look forward to episode 5. And just as a teaser, I'm looking forward to talking to you about this great video tour you're going to do of downtown, because you're going up in a helicopter, aren't you?
That's right. My wife and I we've invested in doing a video tour of downtown in a helicopter. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I've never been in a helicopter. We'll just do that.
Well, that'll be fun. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it next week. I'm going to make sure I ask you when we open up next week.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. I'll talk to you shortly.